the direction of the country. One of the things that kind of has you kind of tilting your head a little bit is this agreement, because I don't know what else to call it, because we strategically are not calling it a treaty, with Iran about their ability to produce missiles. Congressman Gary Palmer from the state of Alabama has joined us today. Congressman, welcome back to the show.
Good to be here, Rick. Good to see you, Bubba.
You too, sir.
We've been watching you fight a little bit. Also joining us, the Assistant Executive Director of the Birmingham Jewish Federation, Daniel Oldrezin, is here with us. I say that right?
That's right.
No, see, I've been working on it. Once I got the long O, I knew I was in. You guys just had a little breakfast near the studio here today to discuss this deal. Now, Congressman, I think this is the first question on everybody's mind. Is there any way to stop it?
There is. We need 2/3 to stop it in the Senate, 2/3 in the House. If all 100 senators vote, that means we've got to have 67 votes in the Senate to stop it, and 290 in the House.
Congressman, help me here, because I'm not very smart. I mean, my understanding of government stopped at 8th grade civics. So if a country makes a deal with another country, we call that a treaty. Why is this not a treaty?
Well, because I think what the president wanted to do, and unfortunately Republican Senator Bob Corker from Tennessee made it a lot easier. He wanted to avoid having to have 2/3 to ratify.
Right. Well,
so they flipped it on us.
Right.
And the Corker deal requires 2/3 to reject, which is...
Well, how can you make a deal when the Constitution clearly spells out treaties and how the Senate has the check and balance on that? I mean, how do you do that?
Well,
I mean,
that's why they don't call it a treaty. They're
but I mean,
agreement, it's all manipulation of the law. It's manipulation of the language, and this is a treaty. And
but we're not calling it a treaty, so it doesn't have to meet that standard.
That's exactly right. They don't want to have to meet that standard. So,
but I mean, you can call it what you want to. When I have to fill out a piece of paper and tell the Internal Revenue Service my financial dealings for the year, it's called a tax return. Now, we could call it something else, or maybe I could declare myself a sanctuary city taxpayer and just not pay it.
Yeah,
I mean, we're just playing with words and games now, right?
But it's
as
key.
a member of Congress, I cannot condone that activity.
But even when he's
but that doesn't mean anything.
they're calling
Apparently
it.
not.
I'm a sanctuary from that too.
Right. They're calling
I declared it
an agreement, but the agreement does not meet congressional standards. I mean, it doesn't.
No.
I mean, this is not. They can't do what they're trying to do, right? I mean, they can, but I mean.
Well, the president has certain power under the executive office that he's going to be able to utilize. But let's say Congress does reject this, he will go forward on his own with parts of this. But there are things that Congress can stop. For instance, I think we can ramp up the sanctions. The other thing about if the president goes forward with this on his own, everybody knows the clock's ticking on this administration, including all of those foreign countries. So whatever he says is basically going to have a very limited effect. I don't think he'll be that the rest of the world will get behind a guy that's leaving.
Well, since we're playing games with our powers and our separation of powers, why don't we do like in the good old days where the House of Representatives just wouldn't give money to whatever they didn't want funded, and you just don't get to do it. You can have all the laws you want with an empty bank account.
Well, I don't know about the good old days because I wasn't there, but I don't think this. A lot of people have asked me, well, why don't you use the power of the purse? Well, that has to do with the way we appropriate, and that's something that I'm working on. I've suggested that we need to revisit the appropriations process because the way it works right now, come September 30th, the last day of the federal fiscal year, that next day, if you envision every federal agency having this bucket, their bucket gets filled with their funds.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't, it's very, very difficult to walk it back once the money's in there. So I think we need to change the way we appropriate so that we've got more ability to control the spending side of it, the appropriating side, and I think we could hold them accountable. Right now, what happens is what happened a couple of years ago with Ted Cruz is we wind up shutting down the government. That's a failed strategy.
Well, what about the fact that in this situation with this deal, how many Democrats do you need to try to put some brakes on it?
You need 13 in the Senate and 43 in the House. But the way it works is you've got to have 2/3 of a quorum. So if 4 Democrats chose not to vote in the Senate, 66 would be enough. And the same thing would be true in the House. For every 3 who decided not to vote, that's 1 fewer vote that we would need. So if 30 didn't show up that day, then we'd need 10 fewer votes.
All right, when you look today, all right, the Ayatollah today is the story, has a 416-page guide to destroying Israel and rails against the American great Satan. Now,
this is right after he's inked the deal.
I mean, that's today.
That was last week we inked the deal, right? I mean,
we haven't inked it yet.
What does the Obama administration think this deal is going to do?
Well, they're in denial, and I'm not talking about the river in Egypt.
What's their motivation?
Rick, I think that he's looking for a legacy, and I was hoping that after he got the Nobel Peace Prize before he'd been in office 6 months, that'd be enough. I mean, just take your trophy and go home.
Right.
That'd be my attitude. Just go ahead and hang that thing on the wall, whatever.
make your speeches.
Yeah, make your speeches. Charge $1 million honorariums and just get on with your life and let us get on with ours. But and I say that I don't want to be overly disrespectful of the White House, but I think every president wants to have a legacy. And
well, you don't want this legacy.
Well,
you don't want Israel to be bombed as part of your legacy. You don't want missiles that can reach London, that can reach our big cities, from a group that is saying today, not like in the past.
This is hot off the press.
Saying today they want to destroy Israel, and then they want to destroy the American Satan. Who wants that legacy?
I don't think they really believe it. I think they see this as a lot of bluster, but I don't think they fully appreciate what this means to a whole sect of adherents to Islam. This is not just Iran. I mean, they've compared these negotiations to Neville Chamberlain's negotiations with Germany. Well, Germany was a nation state. It was within clearly defined boundaries. Even North Korea, as crazy as they are, they're not adherents for the North Korean philosophy of government throughout the world, but there are millions of people who are a part of this radical sect that wants to see world domination. So this is not about Iran becoming a nuclear power. It's about this particular fanatical sect.
All right, we'll come back. America at a crossroads. We've been saying this throughout this administration. The latest, and there's a number of things, is this horrible agreement with Iran that Congressman Gary Palmer and others are trying to stop, because even if the deal is followed to the letter, it's a bad deal. And if they cheat, it's a really bad deal. And Daniel is here with us, O'Drezen, he's the Assistant Executive Director with the Birmingham Jewish Foundation. And Daniel, you and I were discussing in the break, this agreement, looking at it, the only group in this that gets anything good is Iran. Nobody else gets anything out of this agreement that's positive. Who makes an agreement that only Iran benefits from this? No one else does.
Right. And first of all, I think it's really important to notice that this is beyond a political issue. This is not Gary Palmer saying this is a bad idea or Rick and Bubba saying this is a bad idea. If you look at what the president and the administration have said they would require, they've said from the very beginning, no deal is better than a bad deal. We were told from the very beginning we'd get anywhere, anytime inspections. That turned out not to be true. We were told that they were going to dismantle the entire nuclear program. That turned out not to be true. We were told that this would keep them from getting a nuclear weapon for decades. Turns out that's not going to be true. And towards the very end, they threw in the lifting of conventional weapons UN arms embargoes, which is going to allow Iran to get increased conventional weapons that they'll send to Hezbollah, that they'll send to Hamas, that'll be a direct threat to Israel and its survival.
From a Jewish point of view, and this is very sad to say this because I think I already know the answer. is the feeling among the Jewish people this America's with us, which had always been a given from the time we were the first to declare Israel as legitimate, which I think was what we were blessed to do, and then stand with Israel. Did the Jewish people think the American government is with them anymore in Israel?
Well, I think there's without a doubt a fracture in the American-Israel relationship, and it's really sad. And in growing up in the time I've been doing this work, I've never seen a time like this. And I think what's important to realize is that when Israel's adversaries look at Israel, they don't just look at Israel's military. They don't just look at what hardware the United States sells them. They look at Israel's ability to respond to adversaries as a whole. And that's why the U.S.-Israel relationship is so important, and that's why it's really scary where it's come these days.
When you look, Gary, at this deal, one of the things that you and I were discussing, and I want you to kind of talk about this too from just a monetary standpoint, it looks like that Iran is going to be able to go back selling their crude to whoever they want to, but we can't.
Yeah.
And talk about that for just a minute.
Well, we're unfreezing $150 billion in assets that they will. I think it's very clear Iran's the world's leading sponsor of terrorism. But the other thing is
and by the way, they've never really hid that fact that they support terrorism. That's not some secret.
No,
Yep.
it's not a secret. The other thing, though, is that conventional weapons were never supposed to be a part of this negotiation. This was all about their nuclear program, and but at the last minute, Iran wanted to put in lifting the embargo on and sanctions on conventional weapons. And they got it. And I've read the entire agreement. It's in the second annex. It's at the bottom of page 3 of my copy. I don't know where it would be in another copy, but it's one line, and it just allows Iran to sell weapons. It allows them to buy weapons, and this is a huge issue because Iran's because of the sanctions, they haven't had access to the latest technology and weapons. This is going to allow them to upgrade their naval capability. If we were to have to blockade the Strait of Hormuz or confront them in the Persian Gulf, they're going to, if we lift these sanctions, they're going to be in a better position to fight us off. I think longer term that Iran is going to get a bomb under this deal, and at some point they may develop not only just a regular nuclear weapon and they're building intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBM.
So that's nothing people say, oh, well, they're not capable of making anything that could reach Israel or could reach any city.
They can reach Israel right now.
Right now.
If they had a bomb, they could reach Israel right now.
But then Americans say, well, they can't hit here.
Well, ICBMs, as Ash Carter says, the I stands for intercontinental. What do you not understand about that?
Right.
I mean, 1,200 kilometers, that's New York, that's Washington, that's Philadelphia, that's Atlanta. It's the eastern seaboard. But I'm also
a lot
concerned,
of population there, by the way.
Well, and you got to realize that these guys, Ahmadinejad, when he was president of Iran, I don't know if he let this slip out or he had the okay to say it.
I don't think they care.
But he said that they believe in a worldwide catastrophe, an Armageddon event that will bring back the 12th Imam. They want this. So, but the other thing I was getting to though is if they continue to develop conventional weapons technology, they might develop a tactical nuclear weapon that could be used against our fleet in the Persian Gulf or the Mediterranean or against ground forces. I just think that we're heading toward a disaster if we don't stop them.
Well, I want to land just a minute on the religious aspect of this, which either Obama understands and doesn't oppose, or he just doesn't understand it. It's one thing when your enemy has to think about, if I fire one, you fire one back, we're going to kill each other. When your enemy doesn't care if it kills you and them because they think this ushers in the 12th Imam, that's a completely different mindset.
Well,
they're thinking, well, so what if we get blown up with it? We don't care as long as we can blow up everybody else.
This is
that's a much more dangerous situation, and how we've entered into this agreement. I thought the Cecil the Lion thing was mind-boggling,
Right.
But I mean, this is mind-boggling. This group. I hate to be Donald Trump here. Do they know how you do a deal? They,
what did
we
we
don't,
get?
We don't ever get
Congressman,
anything.
what did we get
well,
in their mind?
well,
What did we get?
I don't think we got anything.
I mean, what did
Why
Israel
didn't you
get?
just
Nothing.
raise the sanctions and say have at it? I mean, that's
Well,
basically what you did.
I think that's the sense of Congress, is that we need to really tighten the screws on the sanctions, because that's what brought them to the table to begin with. And,
we didn't even
and
get
this
hostages
idea,
out.
and
We
here's,
have there
here's
now.
the thing. Let me, people say, well, if we don't do this, the other nations are not going to go along. If Congress doesn't approve this, well, I got news for you. Right now, we have a law that prevents the United States from exporting crude oil, and we're floating in oil. I've
Please
talked
tell
about
people don't know, and you've been trying to say this all along, that we're not broke, we're just stupid.
Right.
Please let everybody know how much crude oil we have.
There's one formation out west in western Colorado, northern Utah, southwestern Wyoming. It's called the Green River Formation. Holds 3 trillion barrels of recoverable oil. That's 3 times what the entire world has used in the last 100 years. It's 6 times the known reserves of the Saudis, 5 or 6 times. And the federal government owns over 75% of it. We need to repeal the ban on exporting crude oil. Okay? Asia will buy oil from us. Europe will buy oil from us, particularly Eastern Europe. They won't be so much in the shadow of the Russians. We need to do that. Under this deal, under our current laws, Iran can export oil, but we can't.
Now, I want you to see that kind of thing. So we're going to let them just
Why?
build wealth. We're in debt, and we need wealth, and we're sitting on top of it, and we won't access it. Why?
Well, the
Why do they
revenues-
not want it exported? What
why
was
won't
the
we
original
export
thinking on that?
Well,
I mean, surely there's logic. We could
The
disagree with it, right?
environmentalists back then thought we were running out of oil. They were predicting we would be out of oil in 15 to 20 years, and we set up the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. We got these
Right.
salt mines full of oil, and we passed this law you couldn't export it. Well,
So we
obviously
would
they
use
were-
up
they were
everybody
wrong.
else's, and we would have it.
That's
what
right.
we had left.
That's right.
So in other words, we don't do this because we don't want to be perceived as mean, or we think we're going to ruin the world, or this is stupid environmental garbage. It's the same old thing.
Well, there's all kind of people who are not crazy about us repealing the ban. There are folks that think it will hurt the oil industry over here because the price of oil will drop, but the market will set the price.
The free market.
Yeah, the market's gonna set
The
the
free
price.
market in capitalism has established the highest standard of living in the history of the world.
The geopolitics of this alone ought to justify it, because Russia's rebuilt, modernized their military with their energy revenues, natural gas and oil, and that's what Iran's going to do if we lift the sanctions. And if we get out there, if anything else, it will lower the price of oil, and it's going to reduce the amount of money that the Russians get. It's
That's
gonna
right,
reduce
that
the
they
amount
have
of
to
money that
spend.
our enemies get.
Right.
It makes sense any way you look at it.
I mean, you realize it's like in the retail world, to kind of put it in something we can all grasp. It's like that you have more singing Elmos than the rest of the world combined. Everybody's looking for a singing Elmo, and you have them. You got it in a warehouse, and you won't sell them.
Well,
I mean,
but-
I mean,
Because we're
it
afraid
doesn't
we'll
even-
run
it
out
doesn't-
of 'em.
It
Yeah.
doesn't- it doesn't because we think we're going to run out of singing Elmos.
But
I mean,
Congressman, I guess the environmentalists have a big part in this, because they see every barrel of oil that's pumped as more greenhouse gas, and they don't want any of it burned.
Well,
So they try to
I'll tell you
slow it
something
down
else
at every
interesting.
turn.
of course, science doesn't
We
support
can
that, but
sell
don't let that
coal.
get in the way.
We can sell coal to Iran, but they're shutting down coal-fired energy production here.
It's a
Man,
little
that's-
confusing to follow if you got a scorecard.
Have
I'll give you that.
Have we just gotten dumber as time has gone
Well,
on?
yeah.
Because we just came back from Philadelphia,
I'm-
and I was so ashamed to see the founding fathers. I avoided them while I was there. I avoided their statues. I avoided the gravesite. I didn't want them to see me or know I was there. I mean, because these were super intelligent men who did an experiment of government that has been unbelievable, and we seem like we're nowhere near as intelligent as they were.
Well, I'm gonna use a quote here that you've heard before, but people really need to pay attention to this, and particularly the people who listen to your show, the people who go to church every Sunday. Elections have consequences, and millions and millions of people the last couple of elections stayed home, and we're paying a price for it.
Not participating in elections have consequences. Gary, you've also called for an independent counsel on Planned Parenthood. The videos that have come out, shocking. No matter what your worldview may be, I don't think any of us see this as anything less than barbaric. And it just violates, to me, what's supposed to be human beings, that we're not animals. This sounds very animal-like. And to have a party to investigate them who says, our president said, now in all fairness to the president, he said this before the latest videos. I want to be fair. When he said as long as he's here with no funding, now that is tax dollars that's not unfrozen assets, that's tax dollars to Planned Parenthood, and as long as he's president, they're going to keep getting it, and God bless Planned Parenthood, and God bless America. Now, God blessing this place, I don't think that's happening based on the videos that we've seen, and you think that the political party that supports them and investigating them is a conflict of interest.
It really doesn't have anything to do with the political party, Rick. It has to do specifically with the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch.
That's right.
Now, I don't know her. And, from all accounts, she conducts herself in a professional manner. But here's the problem. There's a case that went before the Supreme Court involving partial birth abortion in which the court ruled in favor of life on that one, Gonzalez v. Carhart. And General Lynch filed an amicus brief in that case on behalf of Planned Parenthood. Now, clearly, this is an issue that should not be politicized. And there are more videos coming out. And the last one, I don't know if they get progressively worse. I don't see how anybody can watch them. The last one seemed to indicate that there may have been some women who delivered their babies before they could be aborted. In other words, it was a delivered baby. Now, whether it was delivered alive or not, I don't know that. But if a baby was delivered alive and they took its life, that's murder. Okay, that's outside the federal jurisdiction. That's a state crime. If that happened in Alabama or Texas, anywhere else, it'd be local law enforcement that'd prosecute that. You've got a federal judge that's trying to prevent the other videos from coming out. I don't think we should allow that. But in this specific case, with Lynch filing a brief on behalf of Planned Parenthood, I think most Americans would agree that it would be hard to believe that she would be impartial.
No question.
And we need a non-political, impartial investigation. So I've asked that she appoint an independent counsel. The other thing is that if Planned Parenthood is in violation of federal law in selling human organs and human tissue, then the entities that bought them are also in violation of the law, and the investigation needs to extend beyond Planned Parenthood. And then my third point on this is this is not political. I've said that 2 or 3 times already. It's not political. We shouldn't make it political. We need to investigate this and get the politics out of it.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, though, in this next election, if anybody's got hopefully the courage to do it, I would remind everybody, though, that of what the president said and how entrenched he was with this, and here's what they do. I would absolutely remind everybody of that if I was wanting to be elected president the next round.
Well, I think these videos will wind up being seen all over the country over the next few months, and again, like I said, if they get progressively worse, I just don't see how anybody could anyone. I don't care what
regardless of your worldview and your politics. To your point,
I don't see how anybody could watch it.
Congressman, how was the judge trying to block that? What was he saying was the case for that?
Well, there's 2 judges. There was a city judge that blocked one because it involved STEM Express. Well, I think that may have been the only one thus far that involved them, so that really didn't matter. That was a very limited order. This last order is from a federal judge, and apparently they think it's necessary to protect a national abortion rights organization, which, as far as I know, is not even in the videos. So I can't speak for the rest of Congress. I can only speak for myself. I think if that judge's order holds, then I will encourage some of my fellow members of Congress to join me in an effort to require that those videos be handed over to us.
Got about a minute left. You said elections have consequences. Anybody, I know you're not declaring a candidate, anybody that you like out of this group that's trying to be the Republican nominee?
I think it's too early, Rick, and seriously, and I think we need to see what happens in the debates Thursday night, and I think as we go along in this debate process, I think it's going to become apparent to people who we need to have in office.
Well, I was kind of laughing because a congressman that I know pretty well told me that if a candidate would go out and basically start telling it like it is and tell people that hey, that's a stupid question, hey, you know what, we're not going to do that, that they would invigorate a section of the American people. And unfortunately, it was Donald Trump that took your advice. But
I didn't know he was listening to your show.
Right.
How would we have known?
But your prediction about the response to that kind of talk, straight talk, was spot on.
The
And I hope the other
country-
candidates-
Nobody envisioned someone running away in the polls right now when you have the electorate with, 16, 17 choices,
Yeah,
and one of them to have 25%?
The country is desperate for authentic leadership. They're desperate for authentic leadership on the Iran deal. They're desperate for authentic leadership in handling of the nation's economy and our spending. And I think, unfortunately, what Trump has done is rather than inspire people with a vision for making America great again, he's angered people. And anger is not the way to do it. You need to have a vision that people are inspired. They will hit the beaches for you if you do that.
Congressman, keep fighting. Daniel, nice to meet you, and keep doing what
Thank
you're
you.
doing. And go out there and see if you can't use the power available to you guys to at least slow this thing down or dilute it.
Thanks for having us on, Brett.
It's our
Bye.
pleasure. Thanks for what you're doing.